about Digital Democracy Project for anyone that's new, and then we'll leave time for questions. And then towards the end, we want to kind of dive into some of the bills that we've carried, and then we want to give you guys an opportunity to hear from you if you guys have thoughts or opinions about the bills that you guys can share. So yeah, Digital Democracy Project, we are a nonpartisan nonprofit and all about giving voters more power, more influence, and more of a say in our legislative process. We're building a voter-driven system of government, and we are providing a platform. It's a civic engagement tool for voters to have more say, for you guys to weigh in and have more input on legislation. So yeah, we'll kind of try to explore that in more of an interactive way tonight too. And yeah, I think you guys are able, if you see someone pop up, you can admit them too. And yeah, if you guys want to help me keep an eye on the chat too, then that way I can make sure we don't miss anything. And we'll start out with, we have a explainer video. So for those that are new, that'll give a nice overview about us. And then I'll show you guys the features on the website and kind of explain more details that way. So let me get this out of the way. And then let me know if the audio isn't working on your guys' end.
Ever wish you could tell your legislators exactly how to vote? Well, now you can. And it's right in the palm of your hands. Introducing the Digital Democracy Project, a mobile voting app and online tracking system, connecting you to the process, giving you the power. You vote on pending bills, on issues that affect us all, every day, telling legislators how you want them to vote. There's no party politics, no big money, and no special interests. We only compare what voters want to what legislators actually deliver, and everybody can see it. Your representatives, the media, everybody, all from your phone. Plus, it's absolutely free. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You vote on the same bills as your representatives. We track it online in real time, a running tally. Then we take score. We add up every vote on every issue and we post it. You can see if they have voted with or against the majority. And come election time, now you know the score. It's powered by blockchain technology, keeping you secure. And with ID verification, it guarantees that all votes are real votes by real human voters. And don't worry, we never store, share, or monetize your data. And we never will. We're just putting the power where it belongs, right in your hands. So join us. We have the technology. You have the power. The Digital Democracy Project. This is what democracy looks like.
All right. Is my escape button working? There we go. All right, yeah, and so as the video mentioned, helpful distinction too. So the all the results get relayed onto our website. So I'm going to go through showing you guys the features of the website, but then how individual voters add their votes in is using the Votes app. And I'll show you guys how to get into the app to add your votes in. But just wanted to make that distinction that voters submit their votes through a mobile voting app we provide for free, and then everything gets relayed to the website so everyone's able to see it. So this is on the tally map, and this is where you can see an overview of all the bills that we've carried. So these are all the live bills that voters are voting on, and for each bill it'll pull up an overview of the bill so you can see a summary. We provide like a neutral summary of the bill and kind of break down the legal language into ways that people can more easily understand it. And you can see the real-time vote results. So how many voters have voted in support of the bill, how many voted in opposition, and then the percentages. You can see it for each state and for the country overall. And then some additional features we provide with each bill. you can see we partner with Open States, plural, we use, provide their resources so you can see. This one shows like the status of the bill. So this one has only been introduced in the House, hasn't been passed in either the House or Senate. And then you can see the sponsors, and if there's actions on it, you can see kind of the history of the bill. So that's kind of gives you more context about the bill. And then you can also see the full bill text for each bill if you want to read the kind of original text, the most recent version. And the Kialo is another helpful feature. So this is where you can see pros and cons about the bill, and then you guys can also add in if you have more pros and cons. If you want to add in the discussion, you can add those in, and then voters can see these when they're deciding how they'd like to vote.
Sadie, I'm sorry to interrupt. I dropped the link into the chat for the one that she has up, HR 320, Make Marriage Great Again Act. It's now, the link is in the chat, so if you want to pull it up on your own computer and follow along, you can do that.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. And then you can also narrow down, and I should say too, to give some extra background, so I'm pulling up Florida. So we had started in 2023, we did state legislation for Florida only, and then added in federal legislation. And then just recently in August, we officially expanded nationwide to where any US voter can vote on federal bills. So that's kind of why Florida, you might see more votes in there than other states. And then on this view, so you can narrow down to each state and then see the results for each congressional district. So each like member of Congress can see how voters in their district are voting. And then if voters, it'll pinpoint voters' votes into their district that they are registered in. And then this also is to where we're tracking these bills and posting them into the app so that voters get a chance to weigh in first, and legislators can get that input from their voters before they have to vote on the bill. And then I'll pull up one of the earlier ones that we had carried to, like the red, white, and blue land. And so this is also where, like some of the feedback we get is asking about if anyone is listening, if legislators are listening. And one of my favorite aspects about it is that the more voters that we get weighing in, the more influence voters can have on our legislators. So we really are, a lot of our focus is on scaling up, not only keeping more voters informed and engaged, but also kind of giving them more influence, more of a say in our government legislative process. So yeah, I'll jump into more of these bills and kind of highlight some of them here in a little bit once we get through an overview about us. And then we'll show you guys how to get in the app and give more time for questions. And then yeah, if anyone has questions that pop up, you can drop them in the chat at any time. And yeah, if you guys want to, if you see anything pop up, you can add some in. And so that's kind of the first half of what we're doing. We're compiling the votes from voters, illustrating what the voters want from their legislators. And then after our legislators vote, we generate these accountability scorecards. So for each legislator, you'll be able to see the first column is how the majority of the voters are voting. So for each bill over here, you can see if the majority of the voters voted in support of the bill or opposition. So like this first bill, they were overall opposed to this bill. The middle column is how the legislator actually voted on the bill on the floor. So he had voted against this bill. And then the third column illustrates just if the legislators' vote matched how the voters voted. If it matches, they get a thumbs up. If it doesn't match, they get a thumbs down. And then that proportion of how often their votes match how the voters had voted is where the score comes from. So Mac Bernard, he's one of the state legislators, and he's got the highest scorecard of all the legislators right now. And then, yeah, so the middle column's a quick, easy way. We even get feedback about not knowing how legislators are voting. So that's how you can see how they're voting. And then, yeah, we're really trying to illustrate if they're listening, representing what their voters want, kind of trying to help make a better, more representative democracy, and yeah, having legislators better represent and listen to their voters. And then a feature I will highlight too. So we're working on compiling enough votes from all the voters, or from as many voters as we can across the country. And then we'll have these legislators accountability scorecards for all members of Congress and all US legislators in advance of the midterm elections. So right now we're kind of scaling up before we release those. So yeah, regardless of where you're at in the state, we should have scorecards that you guys can use. And especially before election time, this is to help voters make better decisions, kind of evaluating their legislators based on their actual voting record, and then giving voters a chance to hold their legislators accountable. So even if they aren't listening to what the voters want, at least making voters more aware of that so they can then use that at election time when voters have the real power, real influence with our current system. And then I'll add in here too. So one of our newer features that last I heard should be, I think, ready to go maybe this weekend. So this bills view page is kind of where you can sort the bills by different topics, categories, and narrow down kind of, so if there's a topic that you're interested in or concerned about, then you can pull up bills related to that. And yeah, this one, pretty straightforward bill. So for example, like this bill, it'll pull up the overview, and then you can see the vote results, and then how all the legislators voted on the bill. And on this page, it's compared to how the voters in their district were voting. So this bill scorecard the score up here will reflect how often the legislators' votes matched how their voters wanted them to vote on the bill. And then some of the new features I'll pull up for one of the state bills. So these will be more easily available, and I have some of them pulled up I'll highlight too. So some of the newer features that we recently released. So there's impact statements here. If you're familiar with the League of Women Voters, they provide something similar, so you can kind of get more info about like why organizations may support the bill, what kind of organizations, and then what a yes vote means, kind of making that more straightforward so voters have a better idea when deciding if they want to vote yes in support or no in opposition. So adding those additional features, and then you can see the organizational stances. So organizations that have taken public stances, you can see which ones support, which ones oppose, to give more context. And then we're able to add, if you guys know of like organizations that you don't see on here that you're sure are supported or opposed to specific bills, you can relay those to us, and we're able to add any that didn't get added on there initially. And then, so that's those are the main features on the website. And then I think I'll briefly mention, I don't know if there's any candidates or legislators on here, but I'll briefly mention, then we'll jump into the app. So we do also do outreach to legislators and candidates to identify those that kind of align with our mission and want to use our civic technology as a way to hear from their voters, so we can communicate that to voters that like different legislators that want to hear from them. And so on here we'll post which ones we call it endorsing digital democracy projects, so we can communicate that to voters. And then I'll highlight on here too, we do have a media page, and yeah, Ramon's TEDx talk, if you want some more background about kind of like his inspiration for digital democracy project, that's gives more context. It's really helpful, yeah, giving more info about us. And then, yeah, there's other media that we'll post on here. And then John on the call, he does a lot of our interviews with candidates. So we can give candidates, kind of provide a forum also for candidates and legislators to kind of elaborate more about why they're running and provide more of their background. So just wanted to mention that if you guys know candidates or legislators that you think would be interested and really do care about hearing from their voters, you can relay this to them, and then we'd love to connect with them. So yeah, those are the main features, and I think we'll jump into the app now. So if you haven't already, in order to submit your votes, add your votes to the bills, the app is called Votes. It's VOATZ. And if Ramon or John, if you want to drop this link in there. So on your phone, you can either go to this page on our website, and these links will take you to the app into the App Store. So you can either go through the website to get to the app in the App Store, or just go straight there and search for Votes. And the logo, it's in the App Store, it's a blue, blue box with a white check mark. So the Votes app has been used for real voting in actual elections. And so they've been tested out. Security is their top priority, and we wanted to use them for one because we think it's really important that we're verifying voters, so we can confirm that voters, the people weighing in the app, are real people. They're registered voters. That helps us pinpoint the voters' votes into their districts by checking them on the voter file. And then that way we know that there aren't any bots, there aren't people voting multiple times. So that way the vote results carry real weight and they're reliable, so legislators can use those to inform their voting and can trust the results. And then we also care a lot about it accurately reflecting what the voters want. So we wouldn't want any concern of like any bad actors trying to make fake accounts or skew the results. So that's why we have the voter verification process. So once you download the app, it'll take maybe a minute or two. You'll create an account. It'll have you do a PIN number, and then if you have Touch ID or Face ID, you can switch it to that to get into the app. And then the voter verification part, it'll have you use like a driver's license is the common one. So you'll just scan a photo ID and do a selfie scan. And then once they verify you're a registered voter, then you'll be able to vote on all the bills that we've carried. So all the previous ones, and then all the ones that we'll continue to carry. So it's about every other week or so, on average, you will post a new set of bills. So yeah, if you haven't already gotten in there, definitely recommend it. We cover bills on all kinds of topics, so I'm sure there's bills that everyone's interested in. And then, yeah, let me know if there's questions too. If you have questions, just raise your hand or drop them in the chat. I don't want to be throwing too much at once. But I did want to add too, I think something more unique about what we're doing. So there's a lot of ways that people kind of work on I guess like reforming our government. And I think something unique about us is that this is a way that doesn't require any approval or like permission from our government, and we don't have to wait for an election. So this is a way for voters to kind of have an influence right now at any time, and then yeah, without having government like passing a ballot measure or passing legislation or anything like that. So we're giving voters more power, more influence now, and it'll just increase the more people that are weighing in, so we can get that power in numbers effect. And yeah, if you're with an organization, we are always looking to do presentations to different groups, showing your members about these resources. If you do like outreach to voters, we can work with you to like show you how to connect with voters too, that you're reaching out to, so they can take advantage of this too. So we're all about providing this as a free resource. And yeah, I think those are the main points I wanted to make. But yeah, all about kind of influencing our legislators in that way too. And it is, I know a lot of people do emailing your legislators, so it is kind of like you can think of it as like a more modern version or like a streamlined version where we're verifying all those voters ahead of time and then just compiling all the results. So legislators have that info and can quickly see what their voters want before casting votes on the floor. And yeah, I'll pause there. If anyone has questions, I'll pull up the chat. Okay, yeah, thank you guys for dropping those links in. And then, yeah, I'll pull up to, I know we had, Ramon had dropped some of those bills links in here too. Like this is one of the the recent bills that voters have voted on, like Protect America's Workforce Act. And I just wanted to pull up, I noticed this was one that had a lot of organizations had taken a stance on this one. And on this one particularly, a lot of them were in support. Usually we see some on both sides, but yeah, I just noticed there's been a lot of interest in like this bill from organizations, especially you'll see like a lot more union organizations. So yeah, this is available in the app for you to see these features, and then it'll be on the Bills View page. Should be this weekend. So yeah, if anyone has questions, just you can either come off mute or raise your hand, but I'll pause there for a second and then we'll jump into the bills. And then when we get into the bills too, if you guys have like comments or thoughts you want to share, maybe if you had voted on them or you have an opinion about if you support or oppose, if you'd like to share, then we definitely want to hear from you as well on this call. And so the most recent set, so the Make Marriage Great Again Act was one of the bills that we carried. So this one, promoting family values by offering incentives to married couples such as tax benefits, restricting rights for certain unmarried individuals, encourages marriage as a societal standard. And so that bill, if you think that the government should kind of provide more incentives for marriage, then that's one that you would vote yes on, or if not, then you can oppose that one. So this one was, about 80% of the voters opposed this one. And then I think I'll go through, I'll highlight these bills in a set, and then if anyone wants to comment or do a deeper dive into any of them, then we can kind of go through that way too. And John, I see you raised a hand if you want to share.
So I was wondering, it says that there's incentives for marriage and that there are, what else did it say?
I'll pull it back up.
It encourages marriage as a societal standard. It restricts certain rights for unmarried individuals. Where would we find out what rights it restricts and stuff like that? Because that outline tells me, in general what it's doing, but I don't have any specifics.
Yeah,
so you talk about VoteBot.
Yeah. I don't think this is one of the few bills that I pulled up readily. So this is where, in the Bills View.
I dropped it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, could you actually type into VoteBot down there at the bottom and just say what restrictions does the Make Marriage Great Again Act say, and see what the VoteBot says?
Yeah, let's see.
So while she's doing that, I'll describe what this is. So this is a recent feature that we introduced, what we're calling VoteBot, which is meant to help you ask questions about a piece of legislation. So when she puts in a question, what's happening under the hood is that we go and try to pull up all the things that we have about a bill. So the bill text, the bill status. So where is it? What's the most voting on the bill in the Congress? Any external sources that can be useful. So one of the things that we did try to prioritize with VoteBot is to try to give good questions good answers rather than fast answers. So yeah, Stephanie, GovTrack is also useful. We're using Open States as one of the sources. So we feed that into VoteBot to help it answer the query. So I will say that, it takes a fair amount of time to think because it is reading the entire bill when you ask it this question. But we wanted to prioritize, deep answers rather than fast answers. And that's kind of where we leaned on this first version. I would really love feedback on this from folks as you're using this tool to help us, understand what you like and don't like about it.
Okay, so looks like it eliminates the marriage penalty and ensuring that married couples are filing jointly. And it gives a pretty long answer too. So there's a lot of details in here.
So yeah, basically it's saying that there aren't necessarily penalties for single filers, but actually benefits for joint filing jointly, in the sense that it doubles the tax deduction threshold for joint filers. John, if that answers your question.
And then, yeah, the vote bot too, you can continue to ask questions too if you want if you have continuous questions or like based on what kind of input you get, you can ask follow-up questions on that too. And then, yeah, so if you wanted, yeah, the extra info too, that's where you can see like, so this one was only introduced in the House, and I don't even know how to, Greg Stube was the sponsor. So yeah, for each bill, you can get that extra info there as well. And then, yeah, the Haiti Criminal Collusion Transparency Act of 2025. So yeah, that was one that I was asking about, trying to get more, I guess, involvement in conflict going on in Haiti.
I just dropped the link in the chat. I'll point out too that we've had about 24,000 people enroll in Get Verified in the Votes app. Had about, I think we're about to roll over 100,000 votes cast on over 500 bills. But we really need to get millions of people enrolled so that we have tens of thousands of votes cast for a single bill, right? Because for overcross 500 bills, even if we've had 100,000 votes cast, you know, we might only have a few hundred votes cast on a single bill because not everybody's interested in every topic. Not everybody wants to vote on every bill. So we need to get some scale. And I think a lot of that is going to be, that's why this is a grassroots effort. A lot of that is going to be reaching out and helping contact friends and family and other people who are interested in this to get them enrolled so that we can get lots and lots of people using this as an alternative to calling the congressional switchboard, because that's how you get, when you get thousands of people responding in a given bill, that's how you get really influence over legislators. But sorry to distract Sadie.
No, totally fine. And yeah, adding transparency to kind of the current method of reaching out to your legislators, because yeah, right now we don't really know how other people are voting or asking their legislators to vote on bills. So it carries more weight with more people weighing in and more people knowing how voters are contacting their legislators. And then yeah, with making that connection on the scorecards as well. And then, yeah, this is one of the examples of a bill that's kind of more straightforward. Joel, yeah, if you have a comment, question.
I was just curious about the last bill about the Haiti Criminal Collusion Act. It seems like generally a good thing to have, I guess, to be paying attention to like criminal elites that are connected to criminal gangs, I guess, in other nations. But I'm kind of curious how this is like distinguished from like why we single out Haiti here in this respect, if there was like a recent development in Haiti that doesn't exist elsewhere. I don't think this necessarily would be in the bill itself, but or maybe it would be.
Yeah, a lot of what so Charles is not able to make it tonight, but Charles is our legislative coordinator, and a lot of what he's looking at is what bills are getting committee assignments and moving through the process. And so we try to stage things in advance of a floor vote. So the goal would be that when the whole body of the Congress is meeting to vote on this bill, that each individual legislator has some details from their district to help them inform their vote. Because the goal here is to influence legislators to vote the way their districts want them to vote. And a lot of that is driven by the legislative calendar. So I'm not sure necessarily why Congress took up this bill or is taking up this bill, but that was, yeah, go ahead, John.
I just read up real quick, and it looks like they're trying to terminate protective status from people in Haiti for like asylum and refugee status. So what the bill seems to imply on its face is that it's trying to get the Secretary of State to report on corruption and criminality, which may just kind of get it into the zeitgeist that like Haitians are criminals or something like that, so they can kind of further justify restricting immigration from Haiti, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, this was one of the bills that I had asked about too. Yeah, why this one? That was a question that I had, why it was filed. So yeah, I don't know that this necessarily kind of gets at like why Haiti and why not other conflicts that are going on. But yeah, it goes into more detail, requiring the U.S. government to identify, document, and make transparent the involvement of Haitian government officials and other entities, inclusion of criminal organizations. So yeah, this would be a good one to kind of dig into with VoteBot too. But yeah,
Joel, I think what's,
my head.
sorry, Sadie.
Oh, you're
Joel,
fine.
I think what's interesting is, so when we post bills, they all go in one batch. So the people who are voting on the Haiti bill are the same ones voting on the Make Marriage Great Again bill. What's interesting, I think, is when you find that the Haiti bill got a basically 50-50, kind of evenly split the audience, even while the Make Marriage Great Again bill was like 80% opposed. And that to me is actually like the delta is often more interesting to me, that the same group of people find differences on these different bills within the same batch of voters, because it's all kind of going in as one ballot, if you will, based on that date. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what narrative to draw from that other than, I think, as you pointed out, I mean, like generally you look at the body of the bill and you're like, oh, okay, I can see some valid rationale for that. The situation in Haiti is quite dangerous, and there's no government at the moment, and so the country is effectively being run by criminal gangs, and so you could see why people would find that a compelling case, but I don't necessarily know what drives the timeline in the legislature right now.
Yeah, thank you for that extra context.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then yeah, the Haiti one might be a little more complicated, but yeah, like this one was a bill about directing the Secretary of the Interior to commission the carving of President Donald Trump on Mount Rushmore, and yeah, adding him with other historic presidents. So yeah, that's an example of one that's more straightforward, and yeah, not a lot of fans on that one. And then yeah, another bill in here. So this one,
Oh, you're not gonna talk about that one?
I mean, if people have thoughts, yeah, if anyone has strong feelings about this one.
I posted in the chat as well if you want to take a look.
Yeah, Joel, you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess this is where I don't remember if you mentioned the feature about like pulling quotes from people who oppose and support, but this is one where that sounds like I'd be very interested to see like specifically people who support this, like how the benefits kind of outweigh the costs of like doing this. Yeah.
Interestingly, I'm glad you bring that up, Joel, because all right, so as Joel mentioned, if you look at the link that I posted and you go to if you click on the button that says show organizational positions, what you can find here is a list of organizations that we were able to find who have made a public statement either in support or in opposition to this bill. I think Sadie mentioned that earlier. In the case of the Trump on Mount Rushmore, we actually ran this through a couple of times just to make sure that we weren't missing anything, but we didn't find any public statements of support, which was fascinating. And the only public statement of opposition was the Lakota People's Law Project. Now, there are this right now, we're using a GPT-5 implementation for this, which does have access to social media, but a lot of what it's giving us is on public websites. So it's possible people make comments on Twitter and things like that that may not be getting sucked in. One of the things, Joel, I was thinking about doing was incorporating the Perplexity API, which I think does actually a very good job of scouring the Twitter and social media landscape for some of those comments. But as a first pass of this, GPT-5 is doing a pretty good job of pulling from any public comments that are posted on these various groups' websites.
And yeah, Stephanie, I see that you do have strong feelings. Yeah, feel free to get into the Kialo, and that's where you can kind of leave more opinion related or subjective thoughts about the bill, kind of expand more on it.
I want to hear from her
Or you can
right
just
now.
tell us now. Yeah. Yeah, unmute yourself. I want to hear it.
No pressure.
Stephanie, you're muted if you're trying to talk. Oh, says I voted hell no.
Yeah, lots of consensus on that one. And then, yeah, we carried, these were kind of different topics from this week. So this one, we keep seeing some like tied back to immigration. This one was Protect Communities from DUIs Act, makes changes to immigration laws. Any alien convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs will be inadmissible and deportable. And yeah, applies to misdemeanors and felonies. So yeah, I get.
posted this one in the chat as well.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, if you want to check out more too, that's in the chat. I think I'll try to go through maybe the first 2 sets or so, maybe highlight some major ones. And then I know I reached out to kind of spreading awareness to this one. This one's more of like an environmental related bill I thought was interesting. The Fuel Emissions Freedom Act. This one would repeal federal and state motor vehicle emission and fuel standards to reduce regulatory burdens for manufacturers. And yeah, arguing that regulations raise costs, stifle innovation, and lower consumer costs, improve efficiency, and nullifying existing emission standards, prohibiting future regulations. So I don't know if we have any people here that have opinions on deregulation or if we have any environmental activists, but yeah, this one's kind of interesting between kind of pro-business or yeah, protecting the environment.
So this one's complicated for me. So like I'm all for increased emission standards, right? I think that's great. The problem is that when Obama implemented higher emission standards for cars, the lobbyists had a cutout for trucks. And if you notice over the last 10 or 15 years, all the advertising from car companies and most car companies are switching their entire mode of production over to SUVs, which are built on light truck frames and trucks. And suddenly in the last 15 years, everybody needs a truck. And it seems to be that we are being heavily influenced by the marketing campaign to get everybody over into trucks so that they can avoid those emission standards. So it kind of reminds me.
And pedestrian deaths have gone up.
But because the hoods are too high and the people can't roll over the cars, they just get smacked and run over. So
and they're physically larger. Their truck chassis are heavier.
And more inertia. There was a law that was passed, or there was a thing passed in Georgia where we had a wild hog problem, and they were putting out bounties for hogs, and you could bring them some part of a hog that you killed, and they would give you money. And what actually happened though is that people would put out in fields, they would put out these huge like feed spots, and then herds of these hogs would come and they'd sit in the tree line and shoot a few of them. But when you shoot the first shot, everything would scatter. And what ended up happening was they'd get a couple of hogs, but because they had so much high calorie, like dense calorie food put out for these huge herds, that these hogs ended up multiplying more than if we didn't have the bounty in the first place. And the car and truck emissions thing seems to be a version of that, where we tried to regulate it, but we left open a loophole, and somehow that made the problem worse. Yeah. So I can kind of see an argument going both ways on this emission standard.
Yeah.
I know. I think of like California, I think has high regulations on emissions.
The unintended consequences problem. Yeah, Joe.
I guess I don't know all about the regulations really, but just reading this made me wonder like where, like if it's not at the federal or the state level, then does that mean it's not government regulated at all? And then like some private entity kind of controls the regulations or something?
It would be up to the companies to regulate themselves at that point, I guess.
Yeah, sounds like it.
California is known for having a pretty stringent emissions standard. and anybody who wants to sell vehicles in the United States pretty much follows the California standard because it's the largest state by population. So, and Californians absolutely love cars, so you kind of would want to sell there, and that ends up being the de facto national standard. It's similar in some ways to textbooks. So the Texas Department of Education almost sets a de facto standard for textbooks because it's such a huge buyer of textbooks for their state education system. So you end up with these kind of weird situations where if the federal government doesn't regulate, it doesn't necessarily mean regulation doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think market demand can be a type of regulation, I guess, because people aren't going to want to drive cars that get 5 miles per gallon, especially if gas is high. So, you know, there's certainly an incentive for car companies to create more efficient vehicles, but I'm not sure it's enough for them to put in the type of money they need to in R&D to make really efficient vehicles.
Yeah, and I see Stephanie voted no, but let's close the loophole.
Oh, that was a key point. See that last bullet above where it says if this bill, states are likewise preempted from adopting or enforcing their own standards related to vehicle greenhouse gas emissions if those standards are not identified. This is a specific way to target California. This was so, you know, again, I'm a fan of federalism. I believe in the states should have the right to set, you know, make their own laws effectively. So I think I agree with John on the issue of that loophole and on the unintended consequences. I think I voted no on this one simply from the standpoint of not preempting states' rights to set their own regulations.
That's a good thing to have in the Kialo if it's not already.
That's why it's so important to like read the bills and like understand everything that they're doing, because they'll hide these little things in there that it's not obvious from the description.
Right. So much of what we're trying to achieve in this project is giving voters more agency over this process, which we, for many years, we sort of outsourced government to Congress, and then we find ourselves getting really terrible results because we have a really, really broken election system where like the process, I mean, I could go into all sorts of background on why it's so broken, but so what we're trying to imagine is what if we give more responsibility and ownership and agency to voters in this process? But that's not an easy thing. It's not just about, oh, let's let people vote in a mobile app. Like these are complicated topics. So we try to use as many tools as we can, and I think AI is a key part of it, but a lot of it is like building a community around talking through these issues and how do we use a combination of tools and people power to be able to think through these problems and weigh in but have enough intellectual preparation to weigh in. And I will say Joel is working on a very cool tool called Ameliorate, which I think we want to try to figure out how to incorporate into this, which will let you have a lot greater level of nuance and community engagement on identifying key parts of bills, breaking down cause and effect, the nature of problems, and how those problems get solved with that legislation. So Joel's doing some really cool work, and that's why we're happy to be working alongside of him on just the idea of how do we use technology for more deliberative processes, and because it's not going to just be one tool. It's not just mobile voting or just AI, or it's going to be a lot of different things kind of stitched together in this process. And that's why we want your guys' feedback, so that we know what tools to build, what you like, what you don't like, what's informative, what's not helpful, whatever.
Yeah, and I see the conversation in the chat too. John, I think the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, there's an organization, National Popular Vote, and yeah, there's legislation around that. I know at the Florida state level, I think they talked about carrying, but yeah, that's a bill that we'll probably eventually add in here too.
the gist of it is that if every state gets to assign how its electors are vote in the electoral college, and so every state can say, the way they currently do it is, whoever gets the most votes in our state gets all of our electors. But they don't have to do it that way. They could say, whoever gets the most votes in the whole country gets all of our electors. And they could do that right now if they wanted to. They don't need any special legislation. They can pass it in their state legislatures. But what they don't want, I mean, it's honestly, it's political gamesmanship. Basically, you don't, the state legislature in California doesn't want a situation where a Democrat wins the popular or loses the popular vote, but wins the electoral college, but then California gives all of its electors to the Republican candidate who won the popular vote but lost the electoral college. So they don't, like, they all play this game where they claim to believe in the rights of voters, and both parties do this, but they still care more about their party winning potentially. So they're all sort of signing this compact, which says, okay, let's all like look each other in the eyes and agree that we'll all agree that if we get enough electoral votes to represent the majority electoral votes in the whole country, that all of us will change our state laws all at once, so that we'll all choose whoever wins the popular vote and give that person the electors from our state. So it's kind of a weird thing, but because they could do it right now, they don't have to wait for each other, but they're all in a bit of a standoff on that, and that's the nature of that compact.
Yeah, I think a bunch of states have passed it, and it's basically got like a clause in there that says, when enough states have passed it that we've gone past the 270 threshold, then it gets enacted automatically in all the states.
Right, but I guess my point, John, is they don't need a trigger. They could be like, you know what, we believe in the popular vote. We're just going to pass it right now. They have that power, right? California could do that today. Texas could do that today. Oklahoma could do that today, but they choose not to because they still want to be like, oh, what happens in the situation where? So it's kind of silly. You either stand on the principles or you stand on the party. Right now, we're getting the party. Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, having been involved tangentially with this very push, I got to, and knowing some of the people at the forefront of it, going back a few years, I think the issue really is that any state that chooses to adopt it without having that majority support is essentially unilaterally disarming, which could by itself swing a blue state to lead to an election, a red president or vice versa. So, I mean, it is a real thing.
Yeah, no, but I guess if the
principle kind of do coincide, it's protecting the state's interest, I think.
I get that, but what I'm saying is if it's a blue state and a Republican wins the popular vote and your blue state electors tip the election to the person who won the popular vote, isn't that the goal, right? I mean, the theory is if you're going to support whoever want the popular vote, then you should do. All right. Sadie is giving me the cue. I'm getting the gong. All right, she wants to talk about more bills. Sorry to distract.
Yeah, me too.
No, we got last 7 minutes. But yeah, on Jeremy's topic too about kind of like disarming, I know the redistricting's been a big topic too. So there's two bills that come to mind as far as like where if like certain states you've seen that do nonpartisan redistricting, but then others that do kind of gerrymandering, it's kind of where it'd be more effective if we could do it all at the same time. So I think I passed this bill up. Yeah, we had carried like the Fair Representation Act. So that's kind of one where it would be like a nationwide change to where in addition to doing kind of more fair nonpartisan redistricting, it would include like ranked choice voting and multi-member districts. So I think, yeah, as far as like certain states disarming, I think it would be really effective if, yeah, we could pass some legislation like this to kind of do it all simultaneously in all the states. So yeah, that's another kind of election related, reform related bill that we had carried that voters can vote on. And then, yeah, this making American elections great again, that's kind of another one where it would exclude non-citizens from being able to be counted in the census. So that would kind of drastically change, like, states that have higher non-immigrant populations, where they would maybe have fewer, like less representation than they do now. And then you may have fewer congressional seats in those states. But yeah, that's, I know, yeah, the whole immigration topic around that too is kind of, people are on both sides of that too. And John disagrees. I don't know if that was to the FRA or this one, having immigrants accounted for on the census helps us so much more. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it goes a lot for like resources kind of go into those districts too. And then, yeah,
That bill, specifically 4798, is another one that would hit California pretty hard, but also Texas and Florida, which have huge immigrant populations, and could all lose seats in the House. So I think the opposition to that one has actually been a somewhat bipartisan, in that yes, it would hit California the hardest because it's the biggest state and it has the highest immigrant population, but proportionally it would be crushing, not crushing, but it would be a problem for Texas as well, and Florida, big immigrant population, Arizona, New Mexico, a lot of big immigrant populations, New York.
yeah. And yeah, I know like another bill that we'd carry that got a lot of interest around immigration was the Visible Act, that would prevent ICE from like wearing masks and require them to identify themselves. And then, yeah, on other topics too, like the Block the Bomb Acts was another big one. This was related to the conflict in Gaza, kind of making it to where the U.S. has to require that Israel complies with international human rights laws before we're continuing to provide funding and resources to Israel. So if that's an issue that you're concerned about, then that's a bill that you can vote on. And yeah, we carried one like about providing more funding for childhood. What was this one for? Yeah, child care from the estate tax. And yeah, there's some healthcare related bills, but there's about like, I haven't counted. I think we're up to like 60 or so bills that you can vote on. So this is like a good page to kind of go through and look to see. Yeah, I know this one was one where Josh Hawley had sponsored this one. So after voting to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, then he proposed this bill to undo those cuts. So that was another interesting one too. Yeah, Drain the Swamp Act. There's bills about banning, yeah, the Pelosi Act was about banning congressional stock trading.
Take a look at the votes on that one, 1498.
Yeah, this one.
That was one of the most popular bills that we've carried. And I would venture to say, if you look at some of the voting patterns across a bunch of other bills, you might assume that a lot of our voters in the app are Democrats, or perhaps, or lean to the left or whatever. We don't know because it's a secret ballot. But that one of the most popular bills we ever carried was that one called the Pelosi Act, but it's banning stock trading. So there are some things that we as Americans agree on. So
yeah, and
yes,
I know
it was an accident. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was originally, Pelosi was like the original name of it, because I think Hawley may have been behind it, and then I think the name had changed over time. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I'm not sure about the acronym.
Did you see Rick Scott's response to the introduction of this bill?
I don't. Okay, I do kind of remember seeing some video clips. I don't remember anything specific though.
Highly recommend you go and watch him complain about punishing people for success.
Okay, that does sound familiar. People don't like cronyism and corruption in their reps, no matter where they fall on the left-right spectrum. Yeah, I think there is a lot of agreement around that. That's definitely a topic that seems to be pretty, I guess, bipartisan, or regardless of what party you're with. People, yeah, the corruption is something people are not about. But yeah,
Also, I want to point out too that a lot of voters in the app, in the Votes app, are military voters who have voted in elections in very red districts. So we do actually have a fair number of voters from Utah and Arizona and like West Virginia and such that are more red-leaning voters. I think we carried a poll in the bill, or sorry, a poll in the Votes app that was asking people about their sort of who would they vote for right now as a presidential daily tracking poll type of thing. And it was kind of 50-50 at the beginning of the year. I don't know where it stands now. I haven't looked at it in a while. But
if you're not in the app, yeah, that's something where once you submit your votes, you can see the results on like the one that he was referencing to kind of see where the voters lie. But yeah, I know we're at the 8 o'clock or the hour 8 o'clock mark if you're in Eastern time. But I did want to say too, for one, thank you guys for joining, and yeah, I'm glad it was more engaging. Good to hear from you guys. And we are planning on doing this once a month. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link. It'll be the same link too. So if you had the link to sign up for this one, but I'll drop it in the chat. And yeah, we definitely, yeah, as you saw on the map too, we want to start filling up. We want voters in every state. We want to get to where we have millions of voters in every state weighing in. So if you know other people you think might be interested, or yeah, if you're with an organization, reach out to us and yeah, help spread the word. And then hopefully we'll get more people joining next week. And then Ramon dropped in the chat to the link to join our Slack channel. If you're not familiar with Slack, it's a kind of like a platform for us to stay more in touch and kind of communicate better with our team and like supporters. So yeah, anyone's welcome to join our Slack channel, and then we can stay engaged through there. And I can help people out too if you're not familiar with Slack. But yeah, and we'll share a follow-up with the recording and like these links that we just shared, or the ones to the event and to the Slack too. So we'll share that so you guys have that in your email too. Oh, all good, Stephanie. Yeah, and if you're with an organization, we'll do presentations to your group too. So like maybe a time that works better for you all, or if you have meetings, we can come on and speak. So yeah, definitely reach out to us if you have any interest or want to help out. And yeah, if you have questions or feedback for us at any time, we definitely appreciate it. I don't know if anyone else has any last thoughts. I don't. Oh, yeah, having dinner. I did decide to push it back an hour next month just to try a different time out next month. I know people on the West Coast may be a little early for them. So yeah, it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern time next month. And it's October 22nd. Yeah, it's the one we. And Timothy, you want to share?
You're muted.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
I was just wondering, as I mentioned when I logged on here, that this is the first time I've used this particular app. Is there an explanation somewhere where I can get more information, or I just have to play around with it? Like I've gone in and out of here about 3 times and just by accident. So.
Oh, are
you're
you
talking about Google
Meet?
Pardon me?
Yeah. Google Meet is what you're asking about, or are you talking about the Votes app?
Both.
Gotcha. Yeah, the Google Meet, that's helpful feedback. I'll kind of try to do more of like a overview about the buttons and the features at the start of the next one. But yeah, Google Meet we use, it's provided more so for free since we're a nonprofit. So yeah, I know a lot of people are more familiar with Zoom.
Yes.
And then the Votes app too, they have a website if you want more specific info about their app particularly, but I can also show you, the app is pretty straightforward. Once you get verified, it'll have like the sets of bills. It kind of corresponds with the tally map. And then you can see like there's info bubbles. You can see the resources for each bill. And then you'll just select yes, no, or abstain if you don't want to vote. But yeah, and if you have questions about the app, there's also, I probably should mention too, on the website, Oh, Ramon, if you want to drop our emails in the Slack, that'd be helpful too. But yeah, I'll email you afterwards and then we can stay in touch that way. And then this little chat button here, you can also, it'll go to our phones. So if you have questions, you can ask us through there too, and we'll respond as soon as we can. If in VoteBot, I'll try to give a response too. So yeah, I can go through more of that as well.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, I hope you're listening to all of this. I'll be back in touch with you and expect a lot of answers.
Yes, sir, I'm listening. And maybe we'll do some sort of tutorial on Google Meet.
Great idea.
Stephanie, I can share with your group particularly too, your Indivisible chapter. So yeah, let me know about that if you're interested.
Yes, I'd like to set that up soon.
Awesome.
Thank you
then
very
Tiffany,
much. Most informative. Appreciate
If
it.
you jump into the Slack, we can answer any of your questions in there too.
Okay.
Yeah, that too. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you guys again for joining, and I'll send you a follow-up email with more info.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
See ya.